at the Herzstein Memorial Museum here in Clayton, New Mexico. One of those little hidden treasures out in the middle of nowhere here in New Mexico. So let's go inside and see what their history is all about.
Okay, we're gonna get a tour.
We boast claim to the largest collection of WPA artifacts in the state of New Mexico. The Dust Bowl hit this area super hard. We were farming or ranching community at the time, and the men were very prideful individuals. The rain stops, the crops have all died, and our cattle are starving. People could hardly afford to feed them any longer. So our superintendent at the time, Mr. Huff, he goes up to Denver and he gets funding basically for the school. What happens is they put the men to work from Raton, Clayton, Dalhart, and even Boise City, and they start refurbishing the school. They do it in a Spanish colonial style. They have educators come in from UNM and from Highlands in Las Vegas. Mr. Alvis has our elementary school named after him. Pretty much anybody who knew him or went to school with his daughters, they kind of tear up when they're talking about him. During the Dust Bowl days, he was the principal at the high school, and he would go through with a water gun, and he would squirt down the students and squirt down the classrooms just to keep the dust settled. His goal was to make life as normal as possible for the kids. They were going through enough, and he didn't want to add to it. A little fun story on this chair. It had been in the bank in Boise City. Mr. Like had all of his life savings in there, probably about $15. The bank's crashed, and he goes in to get his money back. The president of the bank stands up to shake his hand. He says, "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Like, but we don't have your money." While he's trying to shake his hand, Mr. Like skirts around him, picks up the chair, and says, "Well, this looks about $15, thank you." And he walks out, and they just let him go because they were afraid what else he might do. This is the stuff on the Eklund Hotel, and they're actually open today if you guys wanted to go in there. It was back when we were a cattle town. You know, we were a stop on the rail train, I guess, before that, just driving cattle from Dallas to Denver. So the Eklund Hotel was, you know, your best fancy place that you could stop at and get a good meal and all those things. In the Eklund today, in the bar area, there's still bullet holes where somebody had gotten a little rowdy and fired some shots off. So. This stuff all belonged to Mr. Deich. He had lived here from, let's see, birth to the age of 12 when his family moved away. In his adult years, he became an inventor. So he did things like the sonar, the radar, the women's home permanent, and the plastic curler. He invented all those things. And when he was ready to kind of downsize his collection, he sent these things to us because he remembered Clayton fondly. So we've got different pieces from Italy. He was an avid golfer and friends with the Duke. So we've got John Wayne's pencil, a little doll, his putter, and my favorite, Oliver Hardy's number 7 iron, butterfly wings.
These are all made out of butterfly wings?
Yes, sir. It just looks like it glows. It's so beautiful.
Now this is Amazon in 1927.
Is that the Sears catalog?
Get you a catalog and figure it out. There's a 1915 Edison diamond disc phonograph.
You get the sheep to get the cattle to get the land, and the land to get respect. So Mr. Otto, or Odo, depending on who's pronouncing it, they called him the Sheep King. And he ran sheep from here clear to Boise City. That's how large his empire was. Most of the little rock fences that you see coming into town, those would have been sheep runs. That's all. He had immigrated over from Australia. He put in the first hardware store, which is our oldest continually running store in Union County, and it's still in operation today, just a block over. It's now, I believe, Ace for their partnership, but what we're on, well, it's a little north of us. But these things were found out there on the trail, and a really fun story on this piece. So Billy Mock had been out checking his cattle, and he sees something glinting in the sun. He picks it up and throws it in the floorboard of his truck. A few days later, he's driving his wife to town, and she sees it, and she's cleaning it frantically. And she says, "Billy Mock, what is this?" Turns out it was a whale oil lamp. The Santa Fe Trail had been a merchant trail, so we don't know if maybe it had gotten weighed down or just fell out on the trail or what happened, but it's amazing that it survived.
It's amazing it didn't get run over with everything else going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 1951, they had dammed the lake off, and up in the early 80s, somebody was on the backside of the dam and said, "Hey, that looks like dinosaur tracks." The guy he's with is kind of mocking, "Oh, dinosaur tracks." They bring in specialists, and sure enough, that's what it is. Came from the Herzstein store. I mean, we could plug it in. See?
I don't need to curl my
I have plenty of those down here. So Dr. Nealon Gray was the optometrist. He had a 1-hour photo set up before eye mark. Up here we've got St. Joe's Hospital. The last babies born there would have been from 61, maybe 62 would have been birthed over there. Once women had options other than marriage or the convent, he kind of lost his nuns. So that hospital closed, and then the one we have today. Got a blood transfusion machine that would make Van Helsing jealous. Tonsillectomy chair out of nightmares. And the doctor's buggy. When this model came out, it was kind of like a lifesaver, literally, for women. So if you know anything about ranchers, they love their women and they love their grassland. So they may be having complications, and they would call and say, send the doctor. And now we have Blackjack Ketchum. Nobody other than the people of Clayton, New Mexico ever called him Blackjack Ketchum. So sometimes in the story I refer to him as Tom or Blackjack, just out of habit. Tom Ketchum had been born in San Saba County, Texas, down near San Angelo. His father died when he was really young, and his oldest brother, Barry, tried to keep Sam and his immediate brother, Tom and his immediate brother, Sam, on the right path. However, it did not work. The legend says when he was about 9 years old, he had gotten in a fight with his neighbor, and the neighbor's house burned down. So he was probably just rotten from the start. However, he's working as a cowboy, and he ends up in this part of the country. He's got a special lady friend just over the border in Oklahoma, and he would come to town and he would see her, and he'd tell her, the next time I'm here, I'm gonna marry you. And then he'd ride off. He'd come back, and this would happen again and again. Well, one day he tells her, you know what, I'm never gonna marry you, we're just gonna end this now. Well, he's riding off, and as he looks back over his shoulder, she's already in the arms of another man. So he gets back to his little camp, and he pulls out his revolver, and he starts beating himself about the top of the head. This is not where he loses his head, literally, only figuratively. So he goes from kind of a bad guy to a really mean, rotten guy, and the people he's cowboying with, they kind of oust him and his brother. So they start robbing trains. Well, before that, they were just robbing. And he actually killed one of the Herzstein boys over in Tucumcari, which was Liberty at the time. Nothing happens for the murder because, you know, it's the Wild West. So now they're robbing trains, and his brother robs a train up near Folsom. Pretty soon, Blackjack comes up a couple of days later to rob the same train, and the conductor, Mr. Harrington, he's on high alert. So the doors open, Mr. Harrington fires a shot, goes through his arm, train rolls on, and Blackjack is left for whatever fate may come. Unfortunately for him, it was posse from Clayton. So they take him up to Trinidad, they amputate the arm, they bring him back here. He's found guilty for interfering with the mail system, crime punishable by death, and they didn't think they could hold him here. They were afraid that his gang would break him out. So they send him up to Santa Fe, where he's held in prison. They bring him back April 24th, 1901. On that night, they drop a 200-pound sandbag from the noose, and they leave it hanging all night. So all the elasticity in the rope is gone. So the next day, they walk him up on the gallows. They drop him. He goes one way. His head goes another way. They don't know if it was inexperience or the weight he had gained while in prison. I think it was the rope. They really just botched the job. However, the people of Clayton, New Mexico, we were still a territory at the time, so I guess Clayton, they were much more civilized than we are. So they take him out on the highway, off the highway, and they bury him. It would have been out of town. They're done with him. Here comes 1971. Union County Historical Society has this building. We have one artifact for our museum, and we need a gimmick. So they go exhume Blackjack. They rebury him in the center of our town cemetery. Now, legend has it, you can pour him a shot. I'm a teetotaler, so I use water. It works with anything. Pour him a shot, you take a shot. You walk around his grave, pour a shot, take a shot. Do this several times, you ask him what's up, and he'll say nothing.